The South African Broadcasting Corporation says it's pleased with today's judgment by the Labour Court. The court earlier dismissed trade union Bemawu's application to compel the SABC to retract redundancy letters issued as part of its retrenchment process. The union also wanted the public broadcaster to engage in a fair process regarding its restructuring plans, which could see as many as 400 permanent staff lose their jobs. For reaction to this, we're joined via Zoom by the SABC Chief Operations Officer, Ian Plaatjies. Ian, a very good morning to you. What is the next step for the SABC now that the Labour Court has ruled in your favour?
Good morning, Desiree. You're a bit faint. I heard the question, but the next one, if you could just ask a bit louder. Good afternoon, good morning to yourself and to the listeners and to the viewers. What is the next action? Well, the court has obviously validated our process, but we always knew that our process would be able to stand any legal or moral scrutiny. So the SABC has negotiated in good faith. We've actually went over and above what was required by the law. We have suspended the process for the month of December to allow all parties to engage us in terms of the structures and alternatives. We started the process yesterday. We will conclude it by the 31st of December. Thereafter, the retrenchment process will continue. So the letters that were issued that were dated as a termination at the end of December will be extended now to the end of January.
You repeat something you said in your statement, that the court has validated your process, but Hannes Dubeson of Bemawu still insists that you implemented a process before you thoroughly exhausted your engagements. You're obviously not in agreement with this.
No, obviously. Unfortunately, Bemawu has misled its members and tried to mislead the public as well, but now the court has proved that that is not the case. So the process, you know that the 189 process needs to be concluded within a period of 60 days and 4 sessions. The SABC has done 16 sessions over 4 months. That way exceeds the requirements of the law. And all of that was done in good faith. Unfortunately, the delaying and tactics of Bemawu has seriously misrepresented their members within the consultation process.
Bemawu also says that this is not the end of the matter, but you seemingly are quite decisive about it. You already have set dates, as you said. Those letters will come into effect by 31st of January.
Yeah, I heard the interview. So Bemawu has been threatening legal action for the last 5 months, even before we started the process. We said then, and we maintain, that we will always consult in good faith, and we have been doing that. We have set aside additional time for that engagement. You'll also recall that last week Bemawu said that the process we're engaging now by including other staff members, they call that a due process, and they call that unfair. Earlier, Hannes actually said now they're starting to negotiate the first time. You know, when we concluded the process, because in the process, we shared the structures with Bemawu in August already. They only started engaging in that in October. And within the process, they didn't want us to consult with staff or share the structures with the staff directly. They wanted to do that. And because of the rules of engagement, we needed to adhere to that. When we engaged our staff, and they were very Bemawu members, said, you know what, we are SABC employees first before we Bemawu members. Can you please include us? And that's exactly what we are doing now, because we do not trust that Bemawu would adequately represent their members and share the structures, so their members can participate directly now as well, so with Bemawu and all the other participating members.
Why does the SAB statement say that the court has validated the SABC Section 189 process and that it has been procedurally fair and all participating stakeholders afforded ample opportunity to engage meaningfully? when the court was pronouncing on, they were pronouncing on whether letters should be retracted, letters of redundancy?
So the court was pronouncing on two issues. One, Bemawu asked them to actually declare that the process was invalid and to set it aside so that we restart the process. And secondly, they asked for the court to force us to withdraw the letters. The court found in our favor, and that is with cost on both of those issues.
Yeah. So you've called for a meeting with staff. The SABC has called for a meeting with staff today for clarification on the new structure. If the conversation about the new structure is only taking place now, doesn't that put paid to Bemawu's argument that there wasn't sufficient consultation?
No, not at all. So the Act allows that consultation to be concluded within 60 days. After 4 months of consultation, Bemawu had still not come to the point of providing alternatives. So they used delaying tactics, and unfortunately, it negatively impacted their members. So we are now opening that process up to allow all staff to participate in this process and say, give us your input, because we can't trust that Bemawu is going to do that. We gave them the structures in August already. They never shared that structures with their members, nor did they consult with their members on the structures. They only started consulting with us. And remember, we don't determine the agenda. We allow them to determine, and those sessions were facilitated by the CCMA. We wanted to reach coming to alternatives and criteria within the 60-day period. But because of their delaying tactics, we're 5 months down the line, and they haven't meaningfully consulted with their members around the structures. So now we're doing that jointly with them to make sure that their members are not disadvantaged.
Are you convinced as SABC senior management that you have been fair and transparent throughout this process? And if you are, why is it that SABC employees feel differently?
We fully have consulted fairly on this process. If we had to do this process over again, the part that we are doing now, that's the part we would have insisted on, because we do believe that change is best managed with people and not people. That's what we wanted to do from the beginning. But Bemawu said, please stop that process of engaging staff directly. You need to do it via this process, and we will consult with our members. And that is the lesson learned that we go into with this. But we are correcting that. So from a process point of view, yes, we have done that. No problem around that. We do acknowledge that our staff are first employees of SABC before they are members of any trade union. And so we are consulting with the trade unions, but we are also allowing the staff members to give inputs directly as well.
Take us into the latest in terms of your interaction with government about taking this process forward.
Okay. So, the sessions that we've had with PCC has been clearly documented, and you've been covering that process as well. And we have taken all of those into account. So it's not just the current participating stakeholders within the 189 process that we consulted on. We are taking into consideration all of those inputs that we have received, and hence we have developed quite robust alternatives to minimize the impact. You would recall that we started off this process with identifying possibly 600 people that could be impacted by this. And we have now reduced that to only 400 that was issued with possible letters. But because there is 170 positions that are vacant, and because we are allowing VSPs, that's voluntary severance packages, as well as early retirements, that number can be reduced to below 200. But that is only if the participating parties, which includes Bemawu, is going to accept the alternatives or come up with additional ones or different ones that will mitigate the possible losses. And those include salary freezes for the next 3 years across the board. It could be salary cuts across the board. You'll recall that at the beginning of the year, the board asked us to ask the unions to actually freeze the salary increases for this year, which we did, and they did not accept that. So that's a possibility. All of those other ones as well, we've got to reduce the cost. If we don't, then it's going to be more than just the 200 people that are impacted, and it could be as high as 400. We have to look at the alternatives.
Are you going to be issuing any more letters?
So the letters have been issued. Some people have not received their letters yet. Those will not be issued during this month because we are freezing everything during this month, basically. We will engage with all parties around the structures. We will finalize that. We will then communicate what the structures are. And if there are additional people that are impacted or people that are not impacted again, those letters will be issued in the first week in January, and the process will continue.
There has been a general sense that SABC management is an uncaring management. Is this perception true?
No, definitely not. The reverse of that is true. If we were an uncaring management or an uncaring board, these retrenchments would have been effected in August already, because according to the law, we could have done that. And because Bemawu abdicated their responsibility, we could have done this retrenchments in August already. The fact that we haven't and we're engaging and still looking for alternatives show that we do care for our people. We've also reduced that number to could be less than 200, and we are asking for alternatives to see how we can address that. So no, we really do care for our people. This is not an easy process, and I can assure you it's not an easy process from a management perspective as well. So it's emotionally draining for all parties.
So just to reiterate, process going ahead, nothing changes from here?
No, let me confirm what the process is. So within this month, we are engaging the stakeholders that were part of the 189 process, but also staff directly in terms of the proposed structures. And we are earnestly seeking their input into that. So those structures can change, and it will be that finalized structure that we will execute on. And the letters will then be issued, or the ones that haven't yet been, in January. During January, there will be a process of all those that are impacted, that they could apply for positions within the organization. If they are not successful within that application, they would then exit at the end of January. There are people, and we are encouraging people to retire early if they can as well, and to apply for voluntary severance packages as well. That certainly will minimize the impact of the number of people as well.
Thank you for talking to us there. Plaatjies is the Chief Operations Officer for the SABC. As you will have heard, the South African Broadcasting Corporation saying it's pleased with today's judgment by the Labour Court of South Africa in a matter pertaining to Bemawu and the SABC. The Labour Court dismissed with costs Bemawu's application to declare the Section 189 consultation process as irregular and invalid, as well as the withdrawal of the redundancy letters.